Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today I am going to be talking about one of the finest musicians on the music scene today, Norwegian jazz guitarist, composer and bandleader Jacob Young. And Jacob Young first burst onto the scene in the mid-90s and he has played with some of the finest players from the US and European jazz scene, from Karin Krog to Arild Andersen to Larry Goldings to Bendik Hofseth to Terje Gewelt to Trygve Seim, Eilertsen, Jarle Vespestad, you name it, Jacob Young has played with them all. And today I am going to be taking a look at his ECM catalogue, which is a total of 3 solo recordings. And I know that Jacob Young has released a number of albums before signing to ECM and a few co-led projects, but I thought I'd take a look at the ECM catalogue of his albums because, in my opinion, they are some of the most beautiful music that he has ever recorded in recent memory. And just like always, I am going to be talking about each album individually, and then I'll be choosing which album I think is the best one. And in my opinion, they're all great, all sound very different, but at the same time, they're all very beautiful recordings, in my opinion. So we're going to start with the first album, which was released in 2004, and this is Evening Falls. So we've got Jacob Young on guitar, Matthias Eich on trumpet, Oddvar Johansen on bass clarinet, Eilertsen on bass, and the late great Jon Christensen on drums. Killer band, all great players and band leaders in their own right, and a real true supergroup in my opinion. And they all sound fantastic individually, but together they just sound even better. And the funny thing about having a trumpet and bass clarinet as a front line in a band, on paper it should sound terrible, but when you have it in the hands of Matthias Eich and Oddvar Johansen, they create a very unique and beautiful sound, and the way their instruments blend together is just amazing in my opinion, and they sound absolutely great. And when you got a top-notch rhythm section of Matt Eilertsen and Jon Christensen, you can't go wrong. And Jacob Young, he just sounds tremendous as always. So we've got Blue, Evening Air, Minor Piece, Looking for John, Sky, Presence of Descent, Formerly The Promised, and Falling. Brilliant album, top-notch production as you'd expect from ECM. So let's have a quick look. This album doesn't really get talked about that much, but it's quite a hard one to find, but still a great album. There's Jacob Young, Matthias Eich. Highly recommend you check out Matthias Eich's ECM catalogue. Some really good stuff there and some gorgeous songs and playing from this guy. He's an unbelievable musician and he can play everything, but for me, he's at his best playing trumpet. He's just an amazing player. Oddvar Johansen, he's a criminally underrated player, and you will see his name pop up on a few ECM albums. He's unbelievable. Matt Eilertsen, he's a great bass player. I've got one album of his. He's just tremendous, and he can make anyone sound good. And for me, he's one of the most complete and reliable bass players and a great guy to have in your band. And speaking of reliable, does it get any more reliable than the late great Jon Christensen? He's a true legend of the drum kit. He's been around forever, and sadly he's no longer with us, but he's just an amazing drummer, and he knows how to make every band sound tremendous, and he's played with just about everyone, from Younger Barak to Keith Jarrett to Jacob Rowe. He's played with them all, and an absolute true legend, and sorely missed. So all compositions written and composed by Jacob Young, with the exception of one track, which was co-composed by Jon Christensen and Jacob Young. An amazing group of musicians. Some of the best musicians on the scene today, in my opinion. Brilliant album. As I said, it's a very hard album to find, but if you can find it, it's really, really good. There you have it. Jacob Young, Evening Falls. Highly recommended. Brilliant album. So as we move along, the next album that Jacob Young would release would come out in 2007, and it's pretty much the same lineup. Sideways. So we've got Jacob Young on guitars, Matthias Eich on trumpet, Oddvar Johansen on bass clarinet and tenor saxophone this time, Mats Eilertsen on bass, and the late great John Christensen on drums. Brilliant follow-up. As I said, I'm not really a great fan of trumpet and saxophone together, depending on who the players are, and especially when you add bass clarinets to the mix. Can go one way, can go the other. You never know what you're going to get. But in the hands of Matthias Eich and Oddvar Johansen, you can't go wrong. And once again, they sound tremendous. And Mats Eilertsen and John Christensen, they sound great. They make a fantastic rhythm section. And Jacob Young, he just sounds tremendous on acoustic and electric guitars. For me, I'll probably say Jacob Young sounds better on acoustic guitar. I'm not saying he doesn't sound good on electric, but there's just something special when you hear him on acoustic guitar. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So we got the title track, Sideways, Time Rebel, Slow Bobo, Near Southend, Out of Night, Hannah's Lament, Saint Ella, Maybe We Can, Wide Asleep, Gazing at Stars. Beautiful collection of songs, top-notch production as always from ECM and Manfred Eicher. You cannot go wrong when it comes to ECM. You know, they just don't think they ever make a bad album. I don't think there's ever been an ECM album that sounds terrible. So there's all the compositions. There's the man himself in action. There's the guys. True legend right there. Brilliant. Brilliant band right there. There's no the thing with his albums, I'm not really choosing which songs are the standout tracks for me because they're all great. And again, with ECM albums, especially with guys like these, you've got to really listen to all of them in their entirety to really appreciate it. So that's why I'm not really choosing standout songs for this edition, because the whole album to me is just one thing and you've really got to listen to it. It's just like reading a book. You know, you can't just skip the pages. You've got to really take it all in and study it and really listen to it carefully. And that's what it's like with ECM. You know, there's no, oh, I like that song more. Obviously, there's probably songs you do like more, but to me, you've got to really listen to all of them to really appreciate the music. And it's the same here. So, Jacob Young, Sideways, brilliant follow-up to Evening Falls. So we come to the next album. This would be quite a few years that Jacob Young went without an album. And this one is a true ECM classic. The best of the best. And in my opinion, probably the best album of his catalogue, which is 3 solo recordings. And this is Forever Young. We have Jacob Young on guitars, Trygve Seim on tenor and soprano sax, and we've got the Marcin Wojciechowski trio. Woo! Anybody who knows those guys, you probably remember them. They were part of the Thomas Stanko Quartet many years ago, and these guys, in my opinion, are one of the best piano trios in the world today. Think of a modern EST or Keith Jarrett trio, you know, any of those great trios that you probably remember from many years ago. These guys are definitely near the top. So, Marcin Wojciechowski on piano, Sławomir Koziewski on bass, Michał Misłowski on the drums. Very hard to pronounce their names, but you know who I'm talking about. A real, true supergroup. 2 albums previously were more of a band effort, but this is a true supergroup of some of the best musicians on the jazz scene today. And normally with supergroups, depending on what genre you listen to, They all try to find their voice. They all might try to step on your toes, but with this album, it's a true team effort, and everybody on here just sounds fantastic. And Jacob Young and Trygve Seim just sound gorgeous on guitar and saxophones, and the way their instruments blend together just makes it unbelievable sound. And the Marcin Wolszewski trio, you know, what more can you say about those guys? They're just amazing. They're great on their own, but they're even better with other musicians, and they really excel in this setting. So it's a real supergroup and a real team effort. So we've got I Lost My Heart to You, Therese's Gate, Bounce, We Were Dancing, Sophia's Dance, Comeback Girl, 1970, Beauty, Time Changes, My Brother. You cannot go wrong with this album. Brilliant. So let's have a quick look. I remember this album was a very big, highly acclaimed album, and rightly so. What a guys you got on here. All compositions written and composed by Jacob Young. Look at that. I would have died to see these guys play live. I wish they played in London. I would have been the first guy there. You know, it's just, when you get talents of this caliber collaborating together, you can't go wrong. I bet the live shows, I mean, I've read a few reviews about this tour. People have said that it was just absolutely fantastic. I would have killed to see this band live. Brilliant album. And you know what? I'm not even going to bother choosing which is the best album, because I already know what it is. It's this one. No, you just can't go wrong, really. True supergroup, everybody at the top of their game. They all sound great, and you just can't go wrong with this one. The other two are good albums, but this one is the standout of the ECM catalogue of Jacob Young. You won't get any better than this. Highly recommend getting this. And it's still quite an easy one to find. The other two, I wouldn't say they're easy to find. They're a little bit difficult, but when you find them, just buy them. They're brilliant. But this one, unbelievable, in my opinion. Jacob Young, Forever Young, the best album of his ECM catalogue. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite Jacob Young album? Is it Sideways? Is it Evening Falls? Or is it Forever Young? There's no right or wrong answer. We've all got our own favourites. You know what to do. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below. And I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. So until next time, take care everybody and stay safe. And once again, thanks for listening.